Welcome back to the second half of the language planning lecture. In the first part of the lecture, we left off by saying that from certain language ideologies can come specific language planning efforts. Generally speaking, there will be three types of language planning efforts. The first is status planning. This refers to deliberate efforts to allocate the functions of a language or language variety to functional domains within a society, thus affecting the status or standing of the language or variety in the speech community. It involves status choices, making a particular language or variety an official language, a national language, an educational language, a language of work, etc. Language status is the position or standing of the language in comparison to the other languages. The next type of planning is corpus planning, and this refers to the intervention in the forms of a language. Corpus planning arises out of the perceived inadequacy of the form of a language to serve desired functions. Corpus planning may be achieved by creating new words or expressions, modifying old ones, or selecting among alternative forms. Corpus planning aims to develop the resources of a language so that it becomes an appropriate medium of communication for the modern topics and forms of discourse, equipped with terminology needed for use in administration, education, and the like. The categories of corpus planning include graphization, which is the development, selection, and modification of scripts and orthographic conventions for a language. Corpus planning also includes standardization. In language, standardization is the process by which one variety of language takes precedence over other social and regional dialects of the language. The standard variety comes to be understood as supra-dialectal and the best form of the language. Best defined by descriptive rules by which the language ought to operate. Another type of corpus planning is modernization. This is the process whereby a language becomes an appropriate medium of communication for modern topics and forms of discourse. Modernization is sometimes referred to in the literature as elaboration. Excuse me, my tongue is getting twisted with some of these words. The final form of planning that you'll encounter is acquisition planning. It is concerned with organized efforts to promote the learning of language, whether national languages or second and foreign languages. It involves efforts to influence the number of users, the distribution of language achieved by creating opportunities or incentives to learn the language. As we end this lecture, I'd like to give you a scenario in which to think about and apply language planning. Imagine you have just entered a community, and through survey, you identify that the indigenous language is currently being used as a language of the group, which you will learn about in your FASOLD reading this week. In addition to the group function, you and other members of the community would like to see the language being used in the religious function for religious ceremonies and celebrations. So the current function is the group function. You and the community desire to see the language used in the religious function. What type of planning and activity would need to be done in order for the indigenous language to succeed in the religious function? Most likely, you would need some religious documents or oral stories in the vernacular language. That's great. Some of us are Bible translators, and that's our area of expertise. In order to do a Bible translation or record oral Bible stories, you'll likely need to undertake some level of standardization, and if there is no orthography, some graphization, which are elements of corpus planning. In addition, if you are doing a translation, you will need to plan how the community will acquire the ability to read the translation, which is acquisition planning, which can include adult literacy classes. This is just a rudimentary example of how language planning applies in our work. You will have more chances to interact with this concept as you do your readings and assignments this week. And as we finish, I want to take a quick moment to remind you that the final theory exam will be this week. You will have an opportunity to study for it at the end of this week, and the actual exam will be in week 9. Also, at the end of week 8, your third phase of your final project is due. So look forward to seeing the work that you've done on those. Have a great week.